You can start, Garima. You're live now.
A very good evening to one and all present here, all the educators from around the world. I'm Garima, and I'm sorry. Good evening, everyone. I think so. I don't know if you can hear me. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Garima. I am teaching Hindi as a specialist subject at an international school in Chennai. So before I begin my presentation, today's I'm going to talk about differentiated learning in language classroom. So before I begin my presentation, I would like to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Garima and I am a program lead of additional language in Chennai at an international school, Akshar Arbol International School. I'm an enthusiastic learner who learns and tries to apply it in my teaching. I have completed Category 1 and Category 2 IB workshops. I am a PYP teacher teaching Hindi from last 8 years in Chennai. And I love listening to old melodies and love meeting people. A little snapshot of who I am as an individual. So today's session is about differentiated learning in language classroom. Basically, I would like to share my learnings, like how I do it, differentiated learning based on Hindi classroom, because that's a very uh, unfamiliar and uncommon subject that is we do it in Chennai. And being in a South Indian state, teaching Hindi becomes at times very challenging for all of us. But this is as we all know, differentiated learning is basically divided into it can be done by on the basis of content, process, product, and classroom environment. So these are the four factors that help you to differentiate learning in the classroom. A content based learning basically is based on Bloom's taxonomy that we all educators use it. The six levels of Bloom's taxonomy, which we all know are remembering and understanding, applying and analyze, and evaluating and creating. So the first level of differentiation comes on the content base. That's very important because as kids, it's a new language that they learn. So how to make them do, because some kids won't be able to do Hindi at all. So these are some of the examples which I do in my classroom based on content. The first, as we know, is remember and understand. So when I show them a image or a story image or any image from the book, I tell them to find out the words that they remember and they have learned in the Hindi classroom from the previous years or doing the class as it goes by. So once they write it and then it comes, I give them the same words in the form of jumbled sentences. So what happens? They apply the knowledge, what they have understood. They remember and understand whatever they have understood. They apply that knowledge and frame sentences, simple sentences, which helps them to do a proper sentence formation, which can be a very, very simple sentence. After they have started to learn this in my class, we go to the next level of evaluate and create. Once they know how to frame simple sentences, we give them options to present it in the way they want. So they can write a small stories or any incidents or anecdote of their own life. So here there are some examples of three different variety children, those who have just started to write, but with the starting of remembering, they remembered all the vocabulary words, and then they have created their own and then comes the differentiation by process. Basically in this we have visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learners. So when we do differentiation based on process, the students can work in pairs, small groups, or individually, because some kids will be very familiar or they'll be at ease working in small group of might be two or three, and some can work in two groups, or a person who is very confident will work individually. So we don't force that, no, you have to do it individual work. It can be done in pairs or in small groups. So these are some of the examples which I have tried, and it's become a big hit in my classroom, because again, coming back to the Hindi language, it becomes very difficult for us to make them learn a simple sentence initially. So what happens, I make them divide it. This is an example of pictograph sketch noting which I had done in the form of group work. So the kids were divided into 3 4 kids were there in a group, and I gave them some images. So they had to find it out, and whatever they could remember and understand, they wrote it in the form of pictorial diagrams. The same way, individual work, a child who was very confident of doing the work by himself or herself, she did it. So it was like consonants, and they had to write images based on it. The last one which I tried was a pair work. Again, it was a see, think, wonder routine that I tried it in Hindi class. In this, the kids were given an animal of their choice. They had to do it, and in the same way, I promote agency also while teaching. So I had given in a number of animals of their choice. They had to think about that animal, draw an image, and write sentences on it. So a child, this basically my strategy of pairing was a, a child who knows Hindi little bit and a child who is struggling. So that is the one which I have been doing it. And now comes the differentiation by product. In this, the differentiation by product is basically the end result, what happens in the class. It can be in the form of formative when we do, or a summative. Basically, I do it at the end of the. I don't teach it with the based on unit wise, but on the base of the content and the knowledge that kids have gained over the course of the semester. So in the summative end of the summative, I give them a choice which way they want to present their learning. Some kids are very at ease presenting their learning when they read and write, and they're very clear with the, they make their own presentations, do everything on their sets. But some visual learners are very keen in drawing and explaining the product. They use different graphic organizers. Auditory learners, they just present a oral report, and that again they can see and do it, but the end result is the same. So when we have a learning based learning outcomes, the end result becomes the same. And whereas the child who is very interested in drawing, I don't force them. It can be they can just write small words and create an illustration of a poem or a story. This is what happens with the differentiation by product. And I would like to show you some examples of students how we had progressed the differentiation from a simple sentences which we give and examples. Like in this, it was to find out pronouns. I was teaching about pronouns and nouns, and so it was a bit difficult for them to understand pronouns as such, and the nouns basically to find in a sentence. Rather than giving him directly, I gave them as a hint questions. So the worksheet was prepared based on the hint questions. Like they had to think over it. Again, the first level of content based, where they remember and apply their knowledge. And so hints are given, and they formulate that, they frame simple, and they are able to find the sentences. The second, like this, then again I gave them, the second level was where I gave them hints. From that, a sample of, they had to fill the words. Then from that, they had to make their own sentences. So these are some of the words, and in the end, when they're able to frame sentences, they frame a proper paragraph in Hindi when they write it. So these are some of the ways that works best for me. I've tried over the years, and it becomes easier for them to learn the language. And then again, there's, because it's more of a child who likes seeing images and draws. So for me, I vouch by mind maps. They are the best ones. A visual learner, a kinesthetic learner, every learner will be very happy doing it, because they again, when they speak, I write it down on the board, so they have that confidence. Okay, even if they're speaking in English, I'm converting them in Hindi words and writing it on the board. So what happens, they are more eager to share their learnings. This way they'll be able to get more words, and they've developed their vocabulary in the end. So on the this side, which you can see a fish paragraph, it was a simple paragraph, but we had done it in the form of images on the fish. So first we had to speak what are the images, what are the words, on what it is. Once you start doing it, it becomes, they formulate a whole story. Then this is again a writing out of paragraph, which was then it goes back to this slide where you had done it about Pongal. In this, we had learned about Pongal, how Pongal is celebrated in South India, and what are the words related to Pongal. Once they know all this and they have learned it in simple ways, they apply their knowledge, then they start making simple sentences. Like in this slide, it was about fish. Machli ke bare mein, it was like about fish. But then in this, it was, I had given them a image of a cat, and from that they had to frame simple sentences based on cat. They had to write a paragraph on their own. So basically, while teaching, this is one of the best ways which I teach Hindi in a form of differentiation in my classes. I go by the rules of making a sentence. Even if they learn the vocabulary, but still it's very difficult for them. They find it very challenging to put it in a formation of a simple sentence. Again, in this way, it's very easy. I link it with subject, verb, and object, as we say, because most of the kids in our in South India, in our school, because they don't come with a Hindi background, they start translating from English to Hindi, and that becomes wrong when they frame sentences in Hindi. So what happens, like if in English you say he is playing in the ground, but in Hindi when they translate, they say वह खेल रहा मैदान में है. So that becomes a wrong sentence. So the best way to make them understand is I call them up and make them understand the simple rules of noun plus verb. So this sample is done, and with this, when you give them the basics of how it has to be done with the words on top of it, they are more confident, and they develop their writing skills in detail. So again, then the next level, the other ways of doing it, I give them a picture composition, which is not based on, I don't tell them what number of words, as long as they're able to understand. First, they speak what all words they know regarding to that image, and then they start framing it. Then the higher level, those who already know, it becomes as a picture composition or a story writing. So what happens? They see the images, they do the stories, and they write, see the stories and write. Again, it is again divided. A child who wants just to illustrate the picture, like there are two people standing next to the tree, that's enough, because that's the first level of content they are learning. But there's some other child, they'll be able to, when they work in groups, they're able to frame a simple story seeing the picture. Might be the third level of child will be framing some other story seeing this. Might be some other, he might find the characters of the story and then frame a story based on that. Now, for this was a prime example which I did recently for differentiation. I had given one simple picture to everyone in my class. After going all through the process of learning, I asked them which way do they want to do it, and the final product, how they want to do it. A child who had just started learning sentences, he said, I wanted some words. So I had helped him writing the words from the images. But the words he spoke in English and I wrote them in Hindi. And then I said, okay, now try framing sentences, which way you will be able to do. The other child, because there was in the last final level of evaluating and on Bloom's taxonomy, the content based, because they had very confident of writing the whole story. So they wrote a picture, they saw the picture, but they created a story around the picture. So this is the way, because it's totally a new language. We start from grade 2, and by the time this is a work of grade 5 students. So by the time they come to 5th grade, we expect them to write a proper story and do the differentiate in a proper way. They write the story. So now this is one more example of the story that it was before. And these are some of the strategies which I use a lot in my class for differentiation. This has been seating plans, which is a learning environment. I make at times it changes every class. I can't have it in every class the same sitting plan. So what happens at times, if I want to do a pair work, I make sure to do it, pair them, a child who already knows it and a child who is learning. So this way they promote learner profile attributes also, and they're able to collaborate and do a teamwork. And the child who is not able to do Hindi writing or is finding difficulty with the pair, when they are doing it, they feel very confident. So that is what. And assessments, as we all know, we don't I don't restrict it that it can be oral, but definitely end of the semester or end of the year, I make sure that my success criterias are met. So might be it can be in a form of a paragraph or a sentence. This way we do an oral presentation on the assessment. The feedback is very important when I give to my kids, because that helps them to do which are the next level they want to do it. So each and every feedback which I give is based on what they want to do it and which way they have to progress it. And the classroom displays, I use a lot of anchor charts in my class, which helps us to, in case if a child is struggling with a sentence or a vocabulary, they go to the displays that are around the class, see them, and then come and write it. So these are some of the strategies which depends upon the grade and the class that we handle. And I'm sure it will be helpful for each and every one of you, those who do differentiation in class, because ultimately our aim is to make them learn. So that was a thing which I do it basically in my Hindi classes. And I believe differentiation is a scaffolding of learning, where you can take small steps at intervals, and the because the children are different, but the end result becomes the same. Because like suppose in grade 2, if my end result is they have to frame simple sentences, might be by the end of grade 2 I make sure that all my kids are framing simple sentences. It's up to us as educators how to find different ways to make a child exit learn that language, and to make it more interesting. Because if I keep saying no, no, this is the way, if I'm firm it, it's not going to help. So in the end I see that I reach my exit level and my exit criteria for all the grades that they are studying. So these are some of the different methods and paths which I have achieved through my learning, even because constantly even I am learning with them, because being a totally new language, how to promote it and to make them learn. So these are some of the strategies that I use it in my Hindi classroom, and which definitely by the end I can see by the end of the fifth year when they leave PYP and they go to higher secondaries or secondary, they are confident in writing sentences and framing a story of their own. So that's what I want in the end, that my kids are confident in writing it. So this was a small my learning and the way I do differentiation in school, in my school. And any questions from my your side, I would love to answer it. Thank you. That's nice, Miss Dolly. I'm sure certain strategies you'll be using in your Hindi classroom, and they will, because again, being a new language, it's very important for us. We can't have it the same way. In case if anyone has any questions regarding it, uh, Thanks for everyone who joined. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure, and I owe all my thanks to Teacher Tribe community for giving me an opportunity to share my practices and learning with you all, and of course my school for allowing me to do a small session for you all. Thank you so much. Yes, I would like to answer this. A small group of instructions. I when I do it on differentiation, I when see I do it on the base of content or the process, and when it's small group, I give them different instructions for different groups. At times, I give the same time as you said, giving agency. I give them a set of words. Suppose if they have to write on an animal, if I want them to, my learning outcome is I want them to frame sentences on a particular animals. So I don't restrict them to a simple one animal. I give them 10-15 words. That is one way of promoting agency, so that they have a choice, they take the ownership, and they write it. So then I give them instructions. The child who is able to do it on their own, they can write it of whichever animal they want. But the other small groups, again I use a strategy of think, pair, share activity, or sketch noting for them, so that they think about that animal and then start doing it. So the instruction is not one instruction, doesn't go for everyone. Every instruction is specific to that group on which I'm doing a differentiation in the classroom. I hope I've made it a bit clear, Ms. Hager. Yeah, I can share the my strategies with you. I'll be more than happy if you can use it. Yes, definitely. Our Teachers Tribe International community is growing, and it makes us every Sunday we look forward to learn new ways of teaching and different strategies that they promote. Okay, with that, we come to an end of the session. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Happy evening and happy Monday to all of you. Thank you.